So on this left-hand side, you've got 16 channels, which obviously have faders. You've got your selection button. So anytime we want to edit a channel, we just select it using the selection buttons. You've got solo buttons for all these, so we can use that to select that channel. So say if you're wanting to solo that out and see what's coming through on that channel. And then you've got your mute button, which is just below that as well. So this is very similar layout, I guess, to a normal analog desk. All the controls up the top here are activated whenever you select that channel. So you've got your gain control, which, so on this mic that I'm using, adjusts the input level. You've got low cut effect, which we'll go through later. You've got a few compression controls, equalizer there, which is a lot of fun, and you've got a bus return send. So I can put this through bus number 1, because we've got 1 to 4 selected here. You can't actually see that, can you? There we go. Okay, and you can see as I wind this dial up, we're getting volume, and it should be coming out now. If I turn front of house off. Yeah. Yeah. Is that coming through? Yep. So that's coming through the floor wedge on the left. Did we actually change them over? Yep. If I wanted it to come through the floor wedge on the right, I dial in number 2. 2. Yeah. Check. 1, 2. 1, 2. You can see over here, our bus control, you can start to see that that's lighting up there as well. So we're getting signal. If I turn the masters down on the returns, it takes it out of the foldback. So that's how you can control that. There's a couple of other ways that we can control foldback as well, which we'll go through. So all of your channels here, because it's a digital desk, we not only have 16 channels, we've got 3 pages of 16 channels. And the way you scroll through your channels is by the buttons on the right, on the left here. So this is our second page. So first page is vocals up to channel 7, the speaker mic on channel 8, instruments. So we've got keys, guitar, bass, and a couple of extra instruments here. If I press the channel 17 to 32, I now get the second page of faders loaded. So 17 to 32, and these are all of our drum tracks loaded on the second page here. And then we've got a third page, which is our auxiliary. So that was the computer one coming through on aux 1. If you plug a iPod, that comes in on these 2. Even though, yeah. So it's really cool because instead of having a massive desk that's like 400 meters wide, you're just scrolling through pages to get to the different inputs that we've got. Cool? We'll move over to the right hand. Ooh, this is going to be fun. All of our right hand sliders over here. On the very far right, we've got our master. So that controls the whole thing like you would on an analog desk. And then your first group here, what did I just turn down? I turned myself down. It's called a DCA group. And DCA groups are, I was right. DCA groups are, I guess, a selection of, like I mentioned before, your channels coming under one master volume. And so if I hold down the select button above the DCA group, you'll see on the left-hand side all of the channels that are controlled by that master. See that? Okay, and we'll have each of them are set up differently. So that's all your, that one there is called band. Drums you can't see because it's on page 2, but that controls all your drums. So when you're mixing, what that allows you to do is, once you've kind of got a nice blend of, say, your vocalists or your rhythm instruments, you can just use the master DCA controls to just do sort of overall volume adjustment at front of house. And the other thing you can do is you can use it to pull down entire groups. So say you don't want drums in the mix at all. Instead of having to go to all the drum sliders and slide them all down, you just slide the master down. And you can leave all of your drum mix how it was before. You don't have to play with them. So that's your DCA groups. We've got a couple spare here, but essentially the way that you program them, which do we want them to show them how to do it? So it's really easy. Say I want to add, say I want to take my mic that I'm using now out of channel 4. I hold down select, and then Michael's going to press it, and that deactivates it. And now if I want to add it to 5, I hold down 5, and I select it, and I turn up 5, and we're back in. Cool, cool, cool. All right, moving on. So then underneath that, I've got now my first layer of bus channels, 1 to 8. And you can see already here, yeah, we'll do that after. We've got the 2 floor wedges, we've got a couple of spares for more wedges, I'm imagining. And then we've got our 4 radio mic or wireless radio returns, wireless in-ears, there we go. And then we've got a second page which has got our drums return and some effects here as well. So your right-hand side either controls your DCA groups, or you jump in and control your master levels for your bus control for both those pages. We have a button here called Sends on Fader. And what that does is it changes these 8 channels here, not from what they actually are. So these are controlling the master levels of your return, so your floor wedge or your in-ears. When you press Sends on Fader, it now brings up your channel that's selected here on your left. It is now showing me what that particular channel is being sent through any of the foldbacks. Does that make sense? So this is, when it's not selected, it's just the masters. When it is selected, you now have a visual of, okay, I want to put it into floor wedge left. I also want to send a little bit to in-ear monitor 2 and a little bit into in-ear monitor 4. And that's only for this microphone that I've currently got selected. So if it was the worship leader, you'd have to select the worship leader. And now I can mix the worship leader into floor wedge right. I can give the worship leader to in-ear foldback 2. Now, that's a really good way of initially mixing your foldback sends. Problem is, if you forget to turn that off and you start changing these, thinking that you're changing the overall masters, then you can start messing up your foldback sends. Does that kind of make sense? Do you want me to go through that again? Once you play with it a bit, it'll be a bit more clearer. I think Mitch is just adjusting one of who you're adjusting. So see how when he adjusts it on his phone, I'm not touching it. Magic. So effectively, yeah, when the musos are adjusting their own levels, it's changing that as well. So the third, I guess, option that you have is that we can actually, instead of having different pages of our bus masters, if we select a particular bus, so say I want to know who is mixed into the right floor channel, I can select the actual bus return. I can now put Sends on Fader, and on our left now shows me my foldback mix for that wedge. So now I've currently only got the worship leader in there, but I can now bring in me, woohoo, and I can bring in some musos. So what I started with is I started with the bus that I wanted. I then pressed Sends on Fader, and that gave me, instead of the front of house mix coming up on my left-hand side sliders, I now have what's going to that bus. Kind of make sense? Cool, cool. Again, don't forget to either select a different channel back on here and deselect your Sends on Fader to get you back to your, I guess, your home screen or your main master mix for front of house. Otherwise, you'll end up changing things without realizing, you're like, what's going on? That basic functionality will get you to be able to select the channels, adjust your input gain, and start to be able to send them back to particular foldbacks as you wish and as you like and as you want. So a couple of things just with the desk and I guess the console, the way we control it. We've got our home screen, which kind of just displays your home stuff. And then you can go into metering, so you can have that, you can see obviously when you've got your front of house mix going, yeah, what levels everything is at. Routing we'll go through later. That's kind of like a level 2.5, 3. But setup, within the setup is where you will use, you'll need to go to your setup menu to access, one, the lock console screen, so this far end one here. If you press that, it locks the console. So now, oh, you can't see it on the screen. Anyway, we can mess up everything, and to unlock it, we just hold down our home screen for 5 seconds. Ta-da! So again, to go over that, we go to Setup. If you're in a different panel, because you can see all those different tabs, you need to go to the Global tab, which is the furthest one on the left. See that? And you press in your dial here on your right-hand side, and that locks it. Yeah? And 5 seconds on the home screen to unlock. Now on that same screen is also our safe shutdown. So again, go into Setup and hold down our safe shutdown. Ask me to press any key to continue.
To exit.
And now I can turn off the desk at the power switch, which is just at the back. And if I do that, it's going to pop, isn't it? All right, ready? Because we get our mic back. So this might be okay in the case where you're the last one to use it, and I'll just turn that down. And you just wanted to recall all the settings that you had before. But often you're going to want to start to set up from scratch, and this is where you're going to need to load a scene or a master preset, which is what Michael and Mitch have kindly kind of set up, which is the main configuration of where the channels go and all the lights and stuff on the desk. So to load a scene, you can't actually see that here, can you?
No, you need to zoom back up.
All right. Over here, there's a panel here called Scenes. There's a reason why we turn that down.
No, it turns it down automatically when you shut the desk down.
Under this panel here called Scenes, I have a View button on the right-hand side. And when I press the View button, it brings up all of the scenes that have been saved. Okay, so this is when I've pressed View. So that's the home screen. I've pressed View, and it brings up a list now of all of the preset scenes or the saved scenes that are within the system. So Michael has set up four masters based on the different worship teams that you have, and currently we are running on a Chris V master. To change it, like you can see, all I'm doing is scrolling this bottom wheel here. So say this week, or say I'm in here to set up for John's band, I select that, press the button in, and it now loads, completely resets everything, which means that we don't have any sound. 2, 2, 2, yeah. 1, 2, 2, 2. There we go. And so this gives us a fresh starting point to now start to plug in all of our microphones and our inputs and start to set up our mix. So
you'll either be working on a fresh scene, or you'll be loading a scene that you'd already been working on. So this one down here, if I scroll down, I've got a Fiona Master and I've labelled it as the 27th of the 4th. So I can load that, and that's the one that we were working on this morning. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Yeah. 2, 2. Obviously we weren't using this radio microphone this morning. And so what you'll be doing, and I think this is important, and this is something that we'll get you guys to go through this morning when you get your hands on, is say you've loaded, the master. We don't want you to just save your particular band settings or that particular mix just over the masters and over and over and over again, because you'll be changing things that are specific to the band or the people that you have on stage, but not necessarily, they're not just necessarily the master settings. So what you're wanting to be doing is every time you load a master and then you want to save your own version, you'll be loading the master, obviously. I'm getting very good at this part. That's awesome. We should set up another mic. So you'll be loading your master, and then you'll be making all your changes like we've done now. And then we want to save that scene in a new memory slot. So I'm going to scroll down to 11, and there's the 4th button along, which I think you can see just here. Under that window there is Save Settings. So I click on that, and this gives me the same name as the scene that we're copying, but also gives me a note. So I can then hit select, and now I can either scroll down to numbers and give it a date or just a number. So we're just going to call it John Master 1. I'd encourage you to put the date on it so that you know, like if you've got, what date it is that you've been working on it, or what date, if it's for a Sunday, put the Sunday service in there, and then we hit save. And so now you can see that that's saved a different version from the master. We haven't saved over the master settings.